Hey everybody, Alan Brocken, the cool dad everybody's talking about. Here today to kind of continue my story about how I won this prestigious award. In the previous blog post, I discussed how I built a daily discipline around connecting with my family. In this, I'm going to talk about some stuff I did not expect to happen as I was doing this. So, as I started to work on this regular connection with my kids, and no matter how lame it was at first, it started to build something, right? It's one thing to say to your kid as they're telling you about their stuffed animal adventure, and then what happened. It's another thing to make it up on your own, right? Like, you're telling them the whole story. My first couple of mini stories pretty much fell flat because they were bad. Like, they were bad storytelling. And it was forced. Like, I really wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to connect, but I just didn't have it quite right. Because part of it was I was trying to provide a more profound message than you could get into a 3-minute conversation with your kid. Sometimes I'd be getting Daddy, I don't understand, or that's silly, Daddy. But I was connecting and I was kind of starting to pull some of these deeper things in. But the great thing about it was I started refining my thinking around it. Like the more I tried to explain things to my children, the better I understood some of the faith things. So for me, I was actually learning a lot just having to try to explain what I believe to be true to a very young, immature audience. And that was just the storytelling, right? The other thing that happened is I looked for fun facts for my kids. I learned about stuff that mattered to them. And this kind of surprised me a bit because I wasn't really, we spent so much time together all the time before I was traveling. You didn't have to kind of think about what are their interests or that sort of stuff because it's always in your face. But being distant, I started to learn a lot about my kids. And, one of them I found out was just he loves to build things. He's into robotics. And over time, that shared interest became a club thing that we did together, right? We ended up being in the Power Surge Robotics Club. I ended up leading the club. And it was one of those things where that initial, hey, here's a cool thing about a robot I thought you might like to hear, slowly turned into, hey, this is something I really like and enjoy from my child's perspective, and something that we could do together. And the same thing happened with my other kids, right? That 5 to 10 minutes of reading kind of put me in a position where I had different things to talk to my kids about, to learn what their interests were, and then to do it. I mentioned, archery. At some point, I ended up becoming a certified archery instructor because my kids were into that, and we did archery together, right? At the time, that maybe 5-10 minutes more just didn't seem like that much. But I really didn't have any idea where that was going to take me, right? That being said, if I was going to prioritize being the great father over being the great man, I needed to put in that effort daily. It also provided just life support, right? Like, if you got 6, 8, 10 weeks of 4 days gone, that can just drain relational energy. And so this made sure there was a regular connection point. The other thing is, it also gave me laser focus. I was focused on making sure that if I had an opportunity to stay closer to home, I was taking that over the one that might be more prestigious or might get me better status at work, so that I could get home. And over time, that spotting that led to a long-term assignment where, our whole family had to move, but I was off the road for years, literally. A week here and there I was gone, but for the most part I was home all the time. But I would argue that the main reason that happened was I was keeping my wife and kids top of mind. I always had this imperative that, first thing in the morning I was doing something to invest in that relationship. And so as crazy as things got, there was always this little, I don't know what you want to call it, just a little investment in the relational jar that was happening. And, everyday life was not easy. Even when we were all living in the same spot, the job was super demanding. Many Saturdays, Sundays, I was working from the couch at home, but I was still working. And I'm not a perfect father. Like, I've done, if there's bad father stuff to do, I've probably done it in one way or another. That little investment made sure I was prioritizing being a great father over being a great man. But I think the hardest part about being a father is that you just never know, right? I have friends who spent every free minute with their kids, only have them, end up completely estranged over what started as a minor misunderstanding to be a whole thing, right? And so that's why last summer, when my daughter was getting ready to get married, I was so surprised when she blessed me with the Cool Dad Everybody's Talking About award. I got this card from her titled "The Most Important Things I Know About Life I Understand Because of You." And I gotta say, I've received many things in my life, but there's nothing more profound than having your adult child who's going off in the world just acknowledge that investment and the time that it made, and that relationship that we have. So to be clear, I know I put in the time to make it real, and that's how this happened. But it took a lot of mentors, accountability partners, and the grace of God. And so I feel a deep sense of responsibility to share my lessons learned and kind of how to make this happen with other fathers who might be struggling to connect with their families. So in my next video, I'll share some actions you can do specifically to help you connect with your family.